Good morning, and welcome to the Best Football Show. I'm Brian Baldinger. I'm here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We're going to be here Friday for a special reason, and I'm going to get to it in a second. But you can follow this podcast by downloading a free Odyssey app and then liking and subscribing and following this Best Football Show. And then you can follow me at Baldy NFL. And we're going to call this Preview Friday right now because I had a feeling last night's game was going to be special. I didn't know it was going to be this good. Cincinnati's incredible 33-31 victory against the Steelers. Jamar Chase, 16 catches. Joe Flacco, unflappable. I watched the game right here in my office at NFL Films. I had two different angles of it. I had the Prime Video on Amazon on one screen, and I had a handheld camera on the Cincinnati sidelines, had another view of it. So I would see two plays from two different angles. But regardless of where you watch the game from, if you were in the jungle at Precourt Stadium in Cincinnati on TV, wherever you were, you saw a real quarterback display of a shootout. And it was wildly entertaining. It's interesting. I was in Cincinnati to see them against Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and Jake Browning was awful that day. Just awful. And, the game was never competitive. They had scored some points in the fourth quarter. Jamar and T. Higgins both had touchdowns in the fourth. But it was the game was long over. And I thought Cincinnati had to make a move. Joe Burrow wasn't going to have his toe being healed. And so they made this trade with Joe Flacco. And I thought, great. I didn't know how fast you could absorb the offense, but I know they had to get the ball to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins to have a chance in any game if they wanted to be. And so last week, Joe played pretty good. They had a chance. Defensively, they didn't play very good. But last night against the Steelers, everything worked. And it worked really outside the first two drives. I think they scored on 6 straight drives in a row at one point. And then the game-winning field goal, they went down the field and, kicked the game-winning field goal with 7 seconds to go. But a couple things happened. One, they were the worst rushing football team in the league. And last night, you saw Chase Brown and Samaje Perine run for 140 yards. And they popped a bunch of runs. And I'm not sure what the Steelers' defense was designed to do. The run fits were awful, but Chase Brown's a good player. And they played really well up front. I'm going to talk about Jalen Rivers, the rookie right guard out of Miami. Dalton Reisner picked up off the scrap heap at left guard. Played great. Ted Karras in the middle and Amarius Mims and Zeus at left tackle. They played great. They protected Joe Flacco great. But, Jamar Chase, no matter what they tried to do to him, like back when he played Jacksonville earlier this year when he had 14 catches, they couldn't do anything to stop him. They tried zone, they tried bracketing, they tried man coverage, everybody. Whether it was Slay, whether it was Jalen Ramsey, whether it was Joey Porter, they all tried their hand at Jamar Chase. None of them could handle. And Joe Flacco, can you throw the football any better than Joe Flacco did last night? I don't know that you could throw it any better. The touch pass to Yosevich down the middle of the field on 3rd and 4 when they doubled both Chase and T on the outside, and he was left single against Slay, and 40 yards right down the field, beautiful throw. All the way to the game-winning drive, including basically the game-winning throw to T. Higgins over Jalen Ramsey. He was just remarkable quarterback play. And Aaron Rodgers, you could talk about the interceptions. One was kind of a fluke. Ball got ripped out of DK's hands, and the other one was a go ball to DK. And, Jordan Battle came over and from center field and made a great play on the ball. It was one bad throw really by Aaron, but he played great, had him in position to win the game. Got all the tight ends involved: Janu Smith, Freiermuth, Darnell Washington. They all contributed touchdowns. So it was, Pittsburgh did some good things. Defensively, though, they've got some real issues. But what happens now is Cincinnati's 2-4. They got 10 days to the next day. They know they have a quarterback that's going to absorb the offense even more. You get these receivers involved, they can go up and down the field on anybody. And so in Cincinnati, they have hope. Pittsburgh's going to be okay. They're going to rebound from this. The offense is still very good. Darnell Washington's a beast. Warren and Gainwell are good backs. they're going to be fine. But Cincinnati has hope right now. And that's what Joe Flacco just gave them last night. That's why quarterbacking is so important. Let's get to these games this weekend, because there's a big one in Minnesota this weekend. Philadelphia, Minnesota. There's so many storylines here. Eagles won their first Super Bowl, Super Bowl 52 at US Bank Stadium in Minneapolis. On the sidelines that day for the Eagles was Carson Wentz, coming back from a torn ACL, and we know what happened that afternoon against the Patriots. And there's Carson Wentz on Sunday, going to be out there for the Minnesota Vikings. And, it's interesting. Minnesota made a trade of Sam Howell to the Philadelphia Eagles to be the backup quarterback because their backup was banged up. And it opened up a spot for a quarterback, and Kevin O'Connell went out and got Carson Wentz, who didn't go to training camp, didn't do anything this summer, was not on a roster. And here's Carson Wentz starting the last 3 weeks. They won 2 out of 3, including the game winner last week against Cleveland. Carson is 9 years in his business. He's just as big. He's just as strong. He's just as fast. The arm is just the same. He's been around good coaches the last couple of years. Andy Reid, Sean McVay, and now Kevin O'Connell. And he's got elite players around him, and Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, whatever backs play, Aaron Jones or Jordan Mason or both of them, and TJ Hawkinson. He's got more than enough help. And the line's pretty good. This game, to me, is about the Philadelphia Eagles. Because are they Super Bowl champions contenders, or are they in a downward spiral that they won't be able to get out of? Because nothing that they're doing right now resembles what they did in the postseason a year ago. Saquon, 40% of his 95 runs this year have gone for a yard or less. That's way too many bad plays. Defensively, they're not taking the ball away. They're not hitting the quarterback, and they're not shutting down receivers. That's why Denver scored 18 points in the fourth quarter to beat them 2 weeks ago. That's why the New York Giants scored 5 touchdowns against them last Thursday night. And the rookies, Jackson Dart and Cam Scatterbo, look like seasoned veterans. They have issues. Their best pass rusher just retired in Zadarius Smith. But they've had 10 days to get ready for this game. They've all talked about it. It's all over the airwaves in Philadelphia and South Jersey, where I'm at, that they've talked about it. They've addressed it. Now they have to go do it. And they have to do it against the Minnesota defense and Brian Flores. That's difficult to figure out sometimes. My guess is if the Eagles are going to win this game, we're going to see a breakout game from Saquon, and we're going to see some deep shots from Jalen Hurts to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Like, if they do that, they can beat the Minnesota Vikings, and they can come home a winner, put this 2-game skid behind them, and move on and get themselves in position to go win the division again. If they lose, it is the beginning of a spiral and a deep funk that they might not be able to dig themselves out of, which might open things up for my next game, which is Washington going to Dallas. There's a guy that played in Dallas. It's the biggest rivalry there is, Cowboys and Commanders. It still is. It's their biggest. When Dallas was 1-15 in 1989, their one win was against the Redskins that year. Dallas's offense has been awesome, and they're going to get CD Lamb back. But Dak is playing great football. The offense makes sense. Brian Schottenheimer has a really good scheme, and the ball comes out, just count it. 1, 2, 3. For the most part, if you count to 3, Dak's gotten rid of the football. And it's a good formula, really, for all these teams in the league. We saw it last night with Aaron and Joe. Like, count to 3, and it's a pass. If the ball's not out, maybe the routes aren't right, the timing isn't right, it has to get out. And that's what Dak has done. Now, Washington could have easily won that game last Monday night, easily won the game. They fumbled a snap. Jaden Daniels trying to get a handle on it in the rain, trying to get the ball to Bill Krosky Merritt, and the ball's on the ground. Nashawn Wright recovers. They lose on a field goal. So they could have another win very easily. But something's not quite right. Jaden's not quite as dynamic as he was a year ago. Terry McLaurin has not been a part of this offense. Don't think he's going to be this week. Doesn't look good right now. This is a very tough spot for Washington's defense. They're going to get tested. And my feeling is they're going to go after Marshawn Lattimore a lot. He has not been great so far this year, has not held up great. Let's get to one of the great games this weekend. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to Detroit. Detroit trying to bounce back from that defeat of Kansas City where, we're still talking about the play where, David Montgomery threw the ball to Jared Goff for a touchdown, and they 90 seconds later came back and overturned it for whatever reason. And I don't know what transpired. I only know what I've read and what you've read and what you've heard. But regardless, 17 points wasn't enough. Tampa has just been resilient. I mean, I didn't know who some of these guys were that Baker was thrown to last week. I know Tez Johnson was a rookie out of Oregon. The other Johnson, Cameron Johnson, I've never heard of him. And he caught a touchdown pass last week. And, they're doing it without Bucky Irvin and Jalen McMillan and, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. It's unreal what they're being able to accomplish. This is going to be a great test, in Detroit. I don't think Detroit's defense is great. I think their secondary is very suspect with some of the Rock Ya-Sin. Some of the corners they're playing right now are very vulnerable. And so I look at this game as kind of a shootout. And maybe who gets the ball last might prevail. Tampa Bay can kind of begin running away with this division, although Atlanta's going to be really good. We'll see how they do this weekend as well. But, Tampa's going to get healthy. They're going to get some of these guys back. Evans, Godwin, McMillan, they're all going to come back. And Bucky, Irving, they're going to come back. And when they are, and they're at full firepower, they might become, just the favorite to win the whole NFC before it's all over. But this is going to be a good playoff preview right here between these two teams. And then the last game I want to get to is Houston and Seattle. Because it looks like Houston, you remember now, Houston completely revamped their offensive line. They changed offensive line coaches. They changed offense coordinators. So C.J. Stroud is in his third offense in 3 years. But the last 2 weeks, they've looked really good, and they've done a lot of good things. And the guys are settling into their position. Ariante, Ursary at left tackle, they look like they've got some footing. Now they're going to Seattle, where honestly, Sam Darnold is playing as well as any quarterback in this league, and the defense is fantastic in Houston. It's been their bailiwick for the last 2 years. That is going to be the great matchup in this game. Is going to be Seattle's offense, led by Sam Darnold, a rebuilt offensive line. Gray Zabel at left guard has been fantastic. They're healthy. Jackson Smith and Jigba looks like a number one receiver, plays like a number one receiver. It'll be interesting to see if Stingley travels with Jackson Smith and Jigba. But Torrey Horton, Jake Bobo, like these other guys, these other guys can hurt you. Two-headed monster at running back in Charbonnet, along with Kenneth Walker, and a really good play caller. That, to me, is going to be the outcome of this game is can Seattle's offense, really go up and down the field and score against this Houston defense? And vice versa. Seattle's defense, their front, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, they're playing great. Jerron Reed, they've played really, really good football. So this could be, a game that could determine playoff positioning, playoffs period for both teams. Seattle won 10 games a year ago. They look better this year by far with Sam Darnold at quarterback. Houston's won the division 2 years in a row and got off to a sluggish 0-3 start. And here they are trying to get to 500. So a lot of great football this weekend. This has been Preview Friday. I'll be back here Tuesday breaking down Week 7 in the National Football League. I hope you come back and join me next week. And for everybody here at the Best Football Show, enjoy the games, everybody. It should be a wild weekend. Look forward to seeing you and talking about it next week. Thanks for joining me, everybody, on the Best Football Show.